everybody. I hope you've already watched my video about Old World and New World wine label differences because I won't be reviewing any of that information today. Today is all about the tasting differences between these specific two wines which were discussed in that video. So Chardonnay from Burgundy, France and Chardonnay from Australia. We are going to be opening these on site, so hopefully they are delicious and wonderful. We are drinking Vincent Jourdain, his Chardonnay Blanc. So Chardonnay is a region in Burgundy, France, often growing a lot more red wine than white. And the red wines are Pinot Noir, whites are Chardonnay. This is one of the few Chardonnay Blancs I've ever had, and I have loved it in the past, but I tasted it at an event where I was tasting a bunch of different other wines. So this will be my first time trying it just like on its own, really focusing on the tasting of this wine. The New World Chardonnay that we're gonna be tasting, Tol Puddle Chardonnay, oh my gosh. Australian Chardonnay, Stelvin enclosure, otherwise known as screw cap. And every time I try this, I am blown away at how much it tastes like a very, very high-end white Burgundy, so Chardonnay from Burgundy, France. So we're gonna try this vintage, which is a newer vintage for me, and see how it fares up based on wine I've tried before and next to the Vincent Jourdain. I'm gonna try the Old World first. Vincent Jourdain here. These wines are not as cold as you might like to drink, because when they're too cold, it just doesn't really express a lot of their flavor. So these wines are probably about like 55 degrees instead of 40 degrees right from the refrigerator. And that allows a lot more of the aromatics to come out. You can drink wine however you like, but if you're drinking higher end wines, especially fuller bodied white wines, you want to drink them slightly warmer than you might be used to drinking them. So 50, 55 degrees depending on the wine. If you're drinking cheaper wines, the colder the better, and then you won't know the difference. It's fantastic. So Vincent Jourdain Chardonnay Blanc. This is the 2016 vintage, and right off the bat, the nose is super reserved. There is some apple and pear notes in there, a little bit more like brown pear, and all of like the skins and stuff. Some like white rocks, a little bit of like this baked quality to it. And I can detect some like oak spices on here, and from the color also. The color indicates some oak aging on this, but it's definitely not new oak, not overpowering the wine at all. So the nose is super reserved on this one. I'm gonna do the nose of the New World wine side by side with this before we start tasting. Already can tell huge difference in color. The Australian Chardonnay is actually much paler in color, much lighter, and is reflecting the light with tons of clarity. Both are pretty clear for sure, no sediment or haziness, but definitely a paler concentration of color on the Australian Chardonnay, and oh my word, not shy at all on the nose. And no, it's not oak and butter that's jumping out of the glass. It's like wild farm apples that you like made homemade cider from, and fresh white flowers, and this like woodsy like button mushroom kind of forest floor thing going on. Very, very, very expressive nose. This wine is so exciting to me. Every time I smell this wine, it's so specific and so unique and vibrant and vivacious. But, yeah, so wild, so expressive. Let's go back to this one. We're gonna taste now. I'm gonna discuss the difference of acid levels, body, in terms of how full or medium or lighter bodied it is, alcohol levels, sweetness, anything like that. So I always like to do one small sip just to kind of get a first impression of each of the wines. Still seems like really shy and introverted, just on first impression for the French Chardonnay. Yeah, ain't nothing shy about this Tol Puddle. Whew. Okay. So immediately also, even though we haven't really swished the wine around in our mouths, acid is just screaming on this. Super, super racy, very, very lean. Awesome. So, all right, let's get more into this. I'm gonna take a little bit of a bigger swish in the mouth, and I'm gonna swish and swirl it around, kind of like mouthwash. This is my day off, so I am not going to be spitting the wine. Normally I do when I do lots of tastings, but not today because it's Saturday night. Whenever you do that, make sure to lean forward, slurp in some air, introduce oxygen to the wine while it's in your mouth. That releases those esters, those aromatics, while it's in your mouth, and you get the aromatics in a different way in the back of your throat, the back of your nose, than you do if you just smell the wine. Definitely a lot more expressive now as it has opened up a little bit. I do also get a little bit of a like mushroomy quality for this, but lean fruit, apple, pear, but it's all like the skins, not the juicy flesh part of it. And it's also got this like apricot note to it, like dried apricots, which is not usually, you know, indicative of Chardonnay, but for this one, it really is. Lots of white rocks, a little bit of like this chalky texture in the back. A little bit fuller bodied, so the weight on my tongue is a little bit richer. And actually the finish just keeps going. So it is a softer wine, it's a little bit shyer, but it is continuing to talk to me even this minute after I finished it. So definitely coming alive. It's just speaking very quietly to us versus this one is screaming through a megaphone. Let's try this one. Oh my gosh, my mouth is watering so much. Super, super high acid. It's like biting into a Granny Smith apple that's a little underripe. It's just very, very, very bright. And it's got this, instead of this chalky minerality that this one has a little bit more like darker minerality to it. It's a little more like, feels like pencil shavings, kind of like oyster shells, a little bit more graphite-y kind of quality to it. So it seems just a little bit deeper in terms of that minerality. This is more like white rocks. This is more like gray. Lighter bodied for sure. As expressive as it is, it's definitely not as full bodied as this wine is. The finish also, probably because the acid's so much higher, is not lingering quite as long as the old world wine was, as the French wine was. Because it just cleanses your mouth right out and you're just left with this fresh palate. So I really, really now want a whole pile of oysters on the half shell with this wine. Man, yeah, my mouth is just watering so much for this. So two very different wines, similar in terms of price point. Retail, this one would retail for about $50, I'm guessing, and this one would retail for about like $65, $70. So this one's slightly more high end. Neither one of them are like your everyday Chardonnays, and if they are, invite me over and I will help you drink your everyday Chardonnays. But big differences to me is I think this one is going to be a whole lot better with richer styles of food. So I kind of want like lemon chicken piccata. I want something with a cream sauce on it, but I do want something with some salt to it. Maybe some like cured ham, pork belly would be amazing with this one. This one I really want with oysters. I want with something brighter, crisper, something where your food itself has a little bit higher acid level to it. I'd love this with more seafood, and I'd love this with a little bit richer dishes, especially pork would be amazing. We've got lighter bodied, higher acid on this one, a little bit more full body, definitely not full body, but more medium body, fuller body than this one. And a little bit lower acid on this one. Alcohol content feels though higher in the Australian Chardonnay, and by that I mean just kind of how far down you feel that burn after you take a sip. So let's see here. So we're only 13% this tall petal, and well, we're at 13% for the Vincent Chardonnay. So equal alcohol level. So the labels say very, very different wines. What I love about the Toll Petal is, yes, it's New World. I've never had a New World Chardonnay that drank as much like an Old World Chardonnay. So in a blind tasting one time, along with a bunch of really high-end White Burgundies, I picked this out as my favorite, as the highest end, and I thought it was Grand Cru White Burgundy. I was like, this is it. This is like, that's the wine. And it was the only wine that was not White Burgundy. And so if you ever get a chance to try Toll Petal Chardonnay, please do so. They also make a really killer Pinot Noir. Harder to find, really small production, but really amazing wines. Vincent Jardin too, great Burgundy producer, whites, reds from all over Burgundy. Really great stuff. So hopefully y'all are drinking some great wine this weekend. If you get a chance, please go out, buy an Old World and a New World counterpart of the same grape variety, whether it's Cabernet from Old World and New World, Pinot Noir, Old World, New World, Chardonnay, Old World, New World. Tasting wine side by side is literally the best way to learn more about the stylistic and taste differences of the different wines. So if you want to become a better taster, do this. Try wines side by side. Invite your friends over, or just drink both bottles by yourself. Who cares? So hopefully we'll see you again soon. And until next time, I will be drinking this wine. I'll see you next time. Cheers.